All right, are we live? There we are. And we're on. Oh, good. Hey, there we are. We're on. We got some kids coming out, people coming on tonight. We're going to go over a bunch of things today. We're going to talk about brain health. And some people will join us from another call that we just were on. And we do a lot of educational work in this protocol and in this space. And tonight we talk about Alzheimer's. Another day of the week we talk, well, the girls are going to start Metabolic Monday. They're doing that. I don't know if you knew that, but they're going to start that tomorrow. And then we do testosterone Tuesday. And Thursday we play a fun game of Feel Great Squares. And then we have educational science calls almost every night with doctors. And right now, Dr. Dieter is doing a call. And so we have all kinds of information that we share all the time with you. And what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to get right into the heart of the matter. We're going to talk about Alzheimer's, and from the standpoint of a twin, an identical twin. I'm going to introduce you to Cheryl. And Cheryl's going to kind of give you the story. And Dr. Caslick's coming on here in a little bit. And Cheryl's going to share about her story of identical twin. And so we're going to get right into that. Let's go over here and start there. There we are. Ta-da-da. There you go. You're on, dear.
Okay. I'm an identical twin. I'm on the right. My sister Sharon's on the left. We were mirror twins, meaning that usually mirror twins, one's left-handed, one's right. I was right. And in those days, teachers didn't think it was right to be left-handed. So they changed them. So Sharon ended up being right-handed, and she dealt with it great. But we were alike in many ways. We would finish each other's sentences. We felt things when something was wrong with the other one. We would a lot of times end up at the same place with the same color or same outfit on, although we didn't buy them at the same place. Unbeknownst to each other, we didn't know that, the other had it. And we would send our mother the same Mother's Day card one year. And I don't know, we just knew that we felt everything between each other. She was my best friend in the whole world. She was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's when she was 54 years old. Biggest shock of my life and her family's life. She had a 19-year-old daughter at the time. And so daughter ended up taking care of her mom. I had left my job. We had a family business. I left my job for a while to help care for her. Her husband dealt with horses, so he would be gone a couple of days a week, and she would come to my house. And if her family was the first to notice things were wrong, because they were around her every day. They were building a house at the time. They'd built many houses, and she was usually the general contractor. She would make sure that everything was ordered, and she was forgetting to order things. And she worked for the school district in the guidance office as a secretary. And she would call me every day, and she was so upset because she said, I can't handle this. The kids are driving me nuts. This one lady, she's standing over my desk constantly. And finally, the principal called her husband and said, I think there's something wrong with Sharon. He said she loved the kids. Kids loved her, and now she just can't handle them. And so he took her to the doctor. and they diagnosed her with depression, which is kind of a normal thing that happens. They put her on meds, and that wasn't working. So he finally said to the doctor, "How about taking her to Mayo?" And he did. She was up there a week. They did all these tests, and when they came back, was a Friday, and her son's wife was having a birthday party for her son, and she went, and that's when he told me that they were looking at dementia with the probability of Alzheimer's, and I just sank. I thought, it can't be. And he asked me if I wanted to go to Mayo with him the next week, and I did. And that's when we got the diagnosis. Worst thing I could have thought of, and her family. I just remember I asked the doctor, I said, because I didn't want Sharon to hear me ask what I wanted to ask. So I said, "Can we go in the other room?" And we did. And I said, "What are we looking at?" And he said, "She could be in a nursing home in 4 years." And I thought, no way. But she was actually in a nursing home in 5 years. And she spent the last year of her life in a nursing home. She started to get a little bit violent, and she was just too hard to take care of anymore. And her husband did take great care of her. He would even put makeup on her to go to Walmart. She always wanted to make sure she was, he wanted to make sure she looked like she normally did, although her appearance did change. We got very involved in the Alzheimer's Association, and there was many articles written about us because being twins, this was in the newspaper, and this was when we looked alike. That was at her son's wedding. It was before she had got Alzheimer's. It was her son's wedding. And no, that was my daughter's wedding. Yeah, because that's the dress I wore. Anyway, we went to the Alzheimer's convention in Washington, D.C. They asked me to give a speech. I don't know if you can tell there, but we don't look as much alike in that picture. Her appearance changed. This is, I think, when you can see it more. But yeah, she changed. Her whole appearance changed. We didn't even look like twins anymore. Especially the last 2 years. The day that she died, I fed her on New Year's Day, and she was gagging, she was choking, and I thought, I can't do this anymore because I don't want her to asphyxiate. She wasn't swallowing. They forget how to do all that stuff. And so I thought, I'm not going to do this again. That was on Monday. I went back on Wednesday, and I walked in the room. The hospice nurse was putting her in bed, and I said, "She's not breathing right." And she didn't even notice it, but I did. And she said, she went in and got the nurse from the nursing home, and she took her vitals, and she said, you turned to me and said, "You better call family." So I did. That was on Wednesday. And her daughter and me stayed around the clock with her. I slept in bed with her, but I knew that she was going to die on Saturday. I just knew that. In fact, I came home, take a shower, I think it was on Friday, and my late husband said to me, he said, "I didn't think you'd be home." I said, "She's not ready." But Saturday morning, I knew, and that's the day she died. I lost my best friend in the world. And, I spent so much time with her and through her disease, and we were all together at different things. And my late husband said to me once, he said, do you realize that we were in a group of people, but she and I were sitting together and we were just talking to each other? He said, do you realize that you're completely ignoring everybody in the room? And we didn't know that. We didn't realize that, because we had that bond. And, we finished each other's sentences. We had our own language. We really did. My late husband said, you guys are mumbling. And I said, don't worry about it. We know what we're talking about. And, but yeah, I lost my best friend. On the way back from the funeral, I said to my husband, I said, what am I going to do now? But I got through it. It's still hard to talk about. Very, very hard.
Good job. What kind of questions? Any questions you might have, Kaz or Jennifer or Sam? Any questions for Cheryl here?
No, but Cheryl, you are so brave, and I am so glad you do these calls with me every week.
Thank you.
Cheryl, I have a question.
Okay.
I've lost family members from Alzheimer's that I've loved very much. When or what age was she diagnosed, and how? And I got on the call a little bit late, but when was she diagnosed? How old, and how long did you see the transition in her getting worse?
She was diagnosed at the age of 54.
54, okay.
And I started seeing her. She used to be a very self-confident person. And I started to see her just being really quiet. She wasn't the same person anymore. And when we went to her stepson's wedding in Florida, her daughter and I and Sharon were taking a walk on the beach the morning of the wedding, and she kept lagging behind, and I thought, that's so unlike her, and when we went to Washington, D.C., she had been diagnosed in January, and when we went to Washington, D.C., that was April of that same year, and she needed help picking up clothes by then, just different things like that, things that she normally could do, and but she died when she was 61.
So knowing what we kind of know now, and guys, what we've kind of been learning and studying over the last year, that we kind of woke up to some of this metabolic health, it almost sounds like she may have started with some kind of frontotemporal dementia, because it was behaviors. It wasn't that it wasn't mental things necessarily, mental where she was forgetting where stuff was, whatever, but it was also behavior.
But then they noticed because of her job, she wasn't able to do the job as she normally would either. Forget.
And Sam, that was kind of what you had going on with your brain fog too, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The reason I've got, so fearful regarding the brain fog is just because of my family history. Grandfather who raised me, I was the oldest grandson. And so he raised me, and, Pop was an amazing man, but, to see him fade, I think he was diagnosed at 72 and died at 87.
Okay.
And so to watch the slow fade was, it was brutal, to see him fade away and not to know me. And the only thing I'd requested, and I was living in Arkansas and he's living in Denver at this time, but the only thing I had really prayed for and requested is I just wanted to be at his bedside when he passed away. And I wanted to be there. I just couldn't imagine not being there when he took his last breath. And that was just a request that I had. And, God granted that wish. It was a miracle that I made it on a flight.
Sure.
And I just pulled up to the house and I crawled up in bed with him. He had a hospital bed in my mom's house. And I crawled up in bed with him and held him for, 10 minutes before he passed. And it is just a brutal way to go to see my grandmother to take care of and give him, care. And then my grandfather's daughter, my Aunt Thelma, his youngest daughter, we did the same thing with her 2 years ago. Watched her fade away. She was younger. She was probably 60s, and died at 78. So, but to see them just not be able to feed themselves, to not to do anything, it's just gut wrenching. I mean, and for my family, those two members, it was a very slow fade, and it was just hard to process. And then I'm in California last year. I mean, I just celebrated my year anniversary, but I just had that picture of my aunt, and I mean, God's like putting that face right there, that this is where you're headed, and now that I've been able to learn and process what this horrible disease, the root of it, now that I understand it, and I've been able to make some changes, the brain fog that I was struggling with, and I'm talking about not just honey, where are the keys, or where's my wallet, or why am I in this room? I'm talking about brain function of me having an app. I delivered a unit last year in January, an RV, and I'm taking this app that I use every day, and I'm going to enter my hours to come back home and log my hours for DOT, and I don't know how to do it. I literally look at my phone like, what is this? I mean, I could open the app. I opened it, but then when I go to function through the app, I didn't know what to do, and I called my wife, panicked. I panicked for the first time. I mean, I'm like, this is Pop, my Aunt Thelma, this is what's happening to me right here, right now. I knew it. And I get out of the truck there in Santee, California, in the desert, man. I'm just pleading with God. I'm pleading for help. I don't want to leave my wife like I seen my grandmother. I don't want to leave my daughters or my grandkids the way that my grandfather left me. I didn't want that. I mean, I pleaded with him. And of all things, after that prayer, man, TikTok video, and there it was, learning now for the first time at 63 years old, learning about this thing called insulin resistance, learning about this word metabolic health, and something so basic after I learned about it, that we should have learned this in junior high health class. This is the stuff we should have been learning, and never heard about it. And now with, now that I started to understand and read the book by Dr. Bickman, Why We Get Sick, and started to understand the correlation between the food, the gut, the brain, the heart, the kidney, the liver. I mean, after I started understanding it, everything changed. And I mentioned all those things because I had poor kidneys. I had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I was on a statin. I had high blood pressure. I was pre-diabetic and diabetic now. So I had all of that. And this was the worst. My brain fog was the worst. And so, I mean, after being on this protocol and learning about time-based eating and sipping on a tea like this every morning and every afternoon, wow. I mean, I'm down 55 pounds in 90 days. In 120 days, I go from a 7.1 A1C to 5.5. I'm off my statin. I'm off my high blood pressure medication. And everybody in the world, we've got to tell them. We have an obligation to tell people, because we've seen our loved ones die from something that they don't have to. There's something so simple to reverse this stuff. And we've got to get it out. We've got to share this with people everywhere.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's one reason I went on it, because I don't want to end up like her.
Absolutely.
But she was a good cook. She fixed healthy meals, but she had a lot of stress in her life. I mean, they asked us that when I went to Mayo with her, they asked us how our lifestyles would have been different, but they really weren't. They really weren't. She lived on a farmette and they had horses. My husband, we owned a body shop. My husband was a painter. And when he first started painting, he was painting cars in our garage. I have inhaled a lot of paint fumes in my life, believe me.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's what's wrong with me. No, I mean, and I work in a dealership body shop office, and people will, and they have the really, modern downdraft paint booths and all that stuff. But people will come in and say, "How do you stand the paint fumes?" I'm immune to them. I can't even smell them. and it's not that bad in the job. Once in a while, you don't get a whiff of them, but it's not like the old days when it was really bad. But
Dr. Kaz, I have a question for you. Because in our passings, and Doc Kaz, guys, if you haven't met her, is an incredible source of information. She's a lot of fun, and she has insights that we can only pretend to learn about the mind and psychology, and so it's fun. But you had mentioned, of all things, and Cheryl and I were talking, and your puppy has Alzheimer's. How did that? Tell me about that.
He has doggy dementia, and it's very interesting. I'd never heard of this. I owned him for 7 years. He's a rescue, and pretty much I've always made his own food. So I knew the last 7 years of his life was relatively high quality food. It wasn't until 6 months ago that we went all grass fed, no antibiotics. But what I learned was, and it's the same for humans. He technically is slightly older than me. It's 7 times the age. So he'll be 13 in March. So that's 91. And for the first 6 years of his life, he was brutally abused, badly fed. And unfortunately, what's that quote? Wisdom is wasted on the youth. And like many of us, I'll be 70 in March. And I've worked in the wellness industry for 40 years. And my bachelor's was in animal science. So I did have an understanding of feed and rations and what chemicals did in the body. And I've known for 40 years working with holistic practitioners what goes on with detoxing the gallbladder, the liver. But I was amazed that I did not pick up on his symptoms. My vet calls him the miracle dog. He's had melanoma cancer for 2 years. That's the fastest acting killer cancer in dogs, as it is in humans. My dad died of it. My dad lived 20 years with melanoma, and none of the doctors knew it. Wow. And he had symptoms, he had signs, no one picked up on it. So at a very early age, I was pretty skeptical of the medical industry and had several nurses in the family. My sister's father-in-law was one of the #1 pediatricians in South Florida, but I never felt that the medical community really could answer my questions, even when I was very young. So Turks has had melanoma for 2 years. He went on a very strict vegan diet for the first year. And I just decided, okay, sugar causes cancer to grow, but in dogs, processing meat can also cause cancer to grow. So he got wilderness bowls for dinner. He was a vegetarian. And I tell my friends, he was stoned half of his life. He got mushrooms, CBD oil. He got all kinds of autoimmune. He got the same things I was taking. I would take spirulina and chlorella. He got that. And he lives. And so the symptoms, kind of like your sister, Cheryl, he started to shake a lot, but it was only an hour after waking up and about 2-3 hours before we went to sleep. And I said, I think the cancer's back. I think he's hurting. And so the vet said, if he was hurting, he would hurt 24/7. She said, does he pace a lot? I'm like, yeah, front door, back door, front door, back door. She said, does he do odd things? I said, like what? She goes, does he go stand in the yard and act like with his head down, like he doesn't know where he is? I go, yeah. She goes, does he stand between the doorway, halfway in, halfway out? Yeah. She said, He doesn't know where it is. He has doggy dementia. And the shaking is panic attacks because he doesn't recognize you or his surroundings. So luckily, and again, like a human dementia, people always tell me, oh, I know someone who had a dog with dementia and they couldn't do X, or they forgot how to eat, or they forgot how to walk. And I'm like, okay, please, let's not go there. But, so far the meds are great, but I notice if I don't give him his meds right away in the morning, he starts to go into panic attacks. And I find it very interesting. I made a decision probably 2 months before he was diagnosed that he was going all grass-fed. He gets grass-fed organ meats. He gets grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb. He gets organic veggies. This dog eats better than most.
There you go. I was gonna say, Sam and I would say, that sounds like a pretty good diet.
He had lamb stew. We took out the onions and the garlic, but he had lamb stew. He was very, very appreciative of that. But what I tell people all the time is, I was in agriculture for the first degree. And we used to say back in the day, George and Cheryl would remember this. They're old enough, you are what you eat. And I used to say, oh, crap, I'm a chocolate milk and a bag of Oreo cookies, which in your 20s, God blesses you with eating junk food and we don't think it's doing any damage. But now, and my mom she had a very interesting palate. She knew when they started introducing antibiotics into beef, and she would go to a restaurant and say, I can't eat this meat. It has antibiotics. And they'd say, it doesn't. And sure enough, it did. And she would go to a butcher and they would put grass-fed and then non-grass-fed. And she instantly knew. She knew the meat, the milk. And there was just something. I grew up as a kid, like friends would say, can I just bring my dinner over? Like, you eat calf's liver and onions. I'm like, it's delicious. So we had a very interesting upbringing. She didn't believe in sugar. She didn't believe in soda. She thought it was a waste of money. I'm not paying sugar and water. So I went off to college with a much different viewpoint. Like, I just didn't, I would say, oh, I'm not buying a pizza. Back then a pizza was like $2. I'm not buying a pizza. Like, that's horrible. I was probably one of the few who was 19 years old that would say, if you eat that one piece of pizza, it's going to ball up in your colon and you're not going to poop it out for 7 days. Friends would be like,
yeah, you're a bummer. You're a party bummer.
I was the fun one in college. They would be like,
was that at Florida? Was that at
that was my first 2 degrees were at University of Florida.
Now, for guys, for those of you that are not world travelers or historians or have lived very long, I mean, I don't think we've lived that long, and we're only 70s, right? But in Florida, there used to be a restaurant. It was called Skeeter's.
Skeeter's Big Biscuits.
Skeeter's Big Biscuits. And the slogan was, one of the slogans was, I eat at Skeeter's because he needs the money. But you visualize a steak platter, okay, for $1. This is part of my theory on food pricing. Think about anything that's flat and low is like $1. Think pancake, think biscuit. You
pecan pancake, half a pound of pecans, $1.25. Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
Anyway, so. And if you take 3 pieces or 4 pieces of asparagus, you make a teepee out of it, you charge $45. So the taller the food, the more expensive the food. Anyway, Sam, I want to ask, when you were driving those trailers and delivering trailers across country, and prior to you having the event of your brain fog, what was your diet like? What was your stress like, or your diet like, or your sleep like? What was that kind of that? What was going on then?
Yeah. So let me preface this real quick. So because of childhood trauma and dabbling as a young teenager and young adult, alcohol and different experimental drugs.
Sure.
And it was, I don't know that I really, I just know that it numbed a lot of the pain that I was dealing with. And so I stayed on those for a long time. When I finally, God gave me victory over those things in my life, I didn't know enough about addiction to know that I traded in one addiction for another, and it was food. I went to comfort food. I went to eating to give me the comfort. I found food. So I my wife was raised in a very strict vegetarian diet and home, and never really had pop or soda or a lot of things growing up as a kid. Never had a cavity even, and but on the other side, we had a single mom after my stepfather finally left, and my sister and I were home alone a lot, and my mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs and to raise us, and so my sister and I just ate. We'd eat a whole plate of fudge, and milk on the setting. So we never really. I always had probably a poor diet, and then in my 30s I really started getting the belly.
Okay.
Started really getting the belly. But when I was driving, man, it was just a free for all. I mean, I'd go in to get a Denny's breakfast in the morning, starting off with the Denny's breakfast, and then I'd be munching 700 miles is what we typically do in a day, 700 miles of just snacking. I mean, just a handful of something, just snacking, and it just kept getting worse and kept getting worse and kept getting worse, and until I was having a hard time functioning.
God, Jennifer, have you ever had brain fog? I know we'll talk about your caregiving, but have you ever gone down the road of brain fog? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So I am a full-time caregiver to both of my parents who have cognitive decline. Dad is on to what his neurologist says is he doesn't have Alzheimer's yet, but he's on to Alzheimer's medications. Mom is also legally blind, and her recall is slow. So when it comes to my brain fog, the scariest thing I can tell you is I've been doing this for 3 years. I've been on the system for 7 months. And right before the 6 months before I was making a decision on if I was going to start the system, I was putting medical appointments on the wrong day and the wrong week. And yes. Not my proudest moment. And I need to say that, Sam, I totally get it. When you say watching the decline is hard, I've been feeling that a lot lately. Things are slowly getting worse. Yeah. So for me, the brain fog started quite a bit prior to me becoming a caregiver. I'd forget where my keys were, forget where my phone was, forget why I walked into a room. It was really a daily thing for me. Again, it was.
While that was going on, what was your sleep like? What was your diet like? What was your stress like? What was going on? As those things are occurring, and they're saying, "Hey, what else was this? What was else going on in your world? What was the stimulus going on?"
I was dealing with high cholesterol. I was dealing with insomnia, anxiety, depression, and some PTSD. And I mean, I'm 50. I'm going to turn 51, leveling up next week. So, yes, sir. I'm going to level up. Okay. And as you can tell, I'm very proud because, like Sam, I'm 9 years sober, and I dabbled in the extracurriculars.
Sure.
And there was a period of time where I didn't believe I was going to be here anymore. So for me to be hitting 51 is a really big deal to me. I was also dealing with tinnitus, arthritis, joint pain, migraine headaches, teeth sensitivity, menopause symptoms, hot flashes. I got the menopausal tire. I ate every 2 hours. I mean, when I'm stressed, my go-to is something, my mouth moving. And it was one of those things where if it wasn't a food, so I told myself I was tricking my brain. I would chew gum, or I would drink. I used to drink a pot of coffee because I was exhausted all the time. In between drinking my Mountain Dews, Dr. Peppers, and whatever other sodas, I went to Starbucks. I'd get 4 or 5 of those a day. I had to have some kind of energy because every time I would eat, I would crash. I would eat, I would crash. I'd drink one of those drinks, I would crash. And I was on like the hamster wheel and I couldn't get off.
Yeah.
That is not a place you want to be in when you're trying to care for people that you love.
Yeah, I get that. And Dr. Kaz, when have you ever had brain fog at all? I mean, you've spent like a gazillion dollars in the national debt on nutritionals and things, haven't you, or something?
Yeah, I came into this in a much different thing. I spent over $1,000 a month, probably for the last 15, 20 years on various supplements. And it was all about the brain. It was all about having tons of energy. And what I didn't realize was you can be addicted to supplements like people are addicted to meds. So my supplements were covering up the symptoms. And the reason I'm so dark, if anyone's wondering, I'm doing a massive detox in a program. And I was complaining that after 5 months, my body hadn't detoxed anything. And I was thoroughly disgusted. And 2 weeks ago, it unleashed a virus that has been in my liver for 30 to 40 years. And it affects all 12 cranial nerves. Well, any of the cranial nerves. Mine happen to affect 11 of the 12. And one of those is light sensitivity. So I have been living in a dark cave. I told someone, I feel like a mole. Good news is the dizziness and the tendinitis and all that has gone away. We're working on the symptoms.
That's why I'm looking at you and I'm thinking Disney, mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
The kids are like, is your power out? I'm like, no, I do. I look like I do the Cruella very well. So I spent a lot of money and I worked with a lot of holistic people. And I was like, I need maximum brain power. And I was so in tune with my brain. Like the first time I tried MCT oil in bulletproof coffee, my writing ability went from, I can write this in an hour without ChatGPT to, holy cow, I just wrote this in 12 minutes. Like I'm a super genius. And what was very interesting was I thought I knew a lot about holistic health. And like Sam, I had never heard the term insulin resistance. And February 7th, I was on the emergency room floor, which for all my friends who know me, no, I'm a germaphobe. So I was having a panic attack because I couldn't stand up. I was in such dire pain. I couldn't sit in a chair. There were 90 people all coughing. And I was like, I'm getting COVID, which I've never had. I was like, oh, dear, my head is on my hands. I'm like, please, Jesus, no germs from the floor, no germs from the air. And I knew my gallbladder was going out. And I'm like, how can this be? I'm a clean eater. I haven't had dairy for 20 years. I don't eat fried foods. What the heck? I do a gallbladder cleanse every 6 months. Well, when I had it out, which was 1 week later, February 14th, that was my Valentine's Day present. I remember looking at the report and I asked the doctor, I go, okay, this can't be right. This says that 80 to 90% of my gallbladder was dead on the inside. How's that possible? I don't eat dairy. I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. And he goes, I don't know. And in that moment, I was astute enough and I go, well, you should. And so it was really funny because I had this come to Jesus moment, as many of us do. And I said, okay, I'm a clean eater. I'm doing a lot of things right, but I'm still spending $1,000 a month on supplements. I still have an autoimmune. I still have a frozen shoulder of 19 years. I still am overweight by 30 plus pounds. Like, my blood pressure's high. I'm hypertensive. I found out I was pre-diabetic. My cholesterol's through the roof, and I don't eat any cholesterol. So, like most of us did, I prayed. And Andrea Martin was in a mastermind with me. And at the beginning, our instructor would say, okay, everybody, put your wins, personal and professional, in the chat. And she puts lost 11 pounds in 14 days, a foot injury that I've had for 2 years that nobody could diagnose, blah, 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 all these results on this new protocol. And so I privately messenger her. For anybody that runs Zoom rooms, you really need to turn that off, because if not, your participants are private messaging themselves. So I'm like, what the heck? What is this? And so I'm very careful what I put into my body. And she said, oh, it's this fabulous protocol, blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, I'm allergic to everything. Like, I just don't put stuff in my system. And I said, send me a picture of the packet. Well, I took the pictures to my kinesiologist, and he can test off pictures. He doesn't even need to hold it. And he looked at me and he said, get this immediately. I've never tested anything on you that is tested so well. And in 9 days of being on the protocol, I dropped my blood pressure by 42 points. 5 years on supplements, Zippo, 42 points. Unfroze a frozen shoulder, 9 days. Dropped my inflammation from 100% to 0. Dropped blood, my cholesterol, dropped my A1C, and all of a sudden, and I stopped all supplements, because I'm one of these people. I said, well, if it's a 90-day money back guarantee, I'm getting my money back if this thing doesn't work. So I stopped, I'm the doubter. I stopped all supplements, and I just kept feeling better. The surgery started healing. I had a wound on my shoulder that nobody knew how I had gotten 2 South American waterborne bacteria that I kind of refused to go to the doctor. And it got to the size probably of a mandarin orange, was deep purple, and New Year's Eve it split open. And I was like, oh poop, now I have to go see the doctor. So I go to the kind of emergency clinic and get yelled at for 90 minutes while she's trying to get this infection out of my shoulder. Well, the skin had gone necrotic. And she said, look, you are septic in 3 veins. Like, they probably are going to have to remove part of the veins. And what is wrong with you? Why did you let this go so long? I'm like, 8 doctors. Thought I could cure it myself. And didn't even think twice about it. Tried to get that surgery done when they were doing the gallbladder. And he's like, no, I can't do front and back. Like, no. And so all of a sudden, I go back 3 weeks after surgery and I go, hey, check out my shoulder. And he was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, the necrotic skin is eating it. Like, it's gone. What are you doing? And so 9 months in, it has also saved me money. I'm not having to have surgery to have the necrotic skin removed because it's no longer necrotic. So yeah, that, I have to say, I'm very aware of what goes into my body, but I'm even more aware of how it affects the brain. And for me, between learning how to digestive rest, intermittent fasting, and Cheryl, I don't know if you do this, but I followed Dr. Pompa, and one of his things, he taught Mindy Peltz. And one of his things that has really saved me is a variable diet. So I do 3 days of an 18-hour intermittent fast. I eat the order we eat. And then I do 2 days where I do a 24-hour fast. And then I do 2 days where I feast, 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs. Maybe I do 3 meals. And what that allows is my metabolism to never really know what's going on.
What's coming and going.
Yep. And so I do like 2 meals on Monday, then a 24-hour fast on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, I do usually a feast. And then 2 meals on Thursday, 1 meal on Friday. I do a feast on Saturday. And then once a month, I will do a 3 to 4 day fast. And what I have found, I have about 10 pounds left to go, but I jokingly put up a picture this morning. And I said, all the ladies will get this, men won't. But I bought a new pair of fuzzy jammy bottoms because I was freezing. And they came in yesterday. And I opened the bag and held them up and went, my butt will never fit in these pants. Like, I am not getting this waist over my hips. And so I put it aside, and they were cute, and I was bummed. And then I thought, I really thought I was a medium. And so I put them on, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's room to spare. And so I took a picture this morning, like, okay, all the ladies out there, you totally understand my joy. But it is very interesting. And my first thought was, my brain still thinks I'm fatter than I am, which may be why losing this last 10 pounds, mentally, I'm fighting it. But with this variable eating program, every 3-4 weeks, I drop another 3-4 pounds. So, and I'm not stuck on the scale, but like, you know, Cheryl, you were saying, I won't say I lost my mind, but I can't imagine what Sam and Jennifer went through and your sister, because just 8 days of not being able to stand up without landing flat on my face because I was so dizzy, and 8 days of insane migraines, and 8 days of not being able to go outside. Inside, I was wearing sunglasses. And I just thought, the first time it happened, I stood up and I fell flat on my face. The room was spinning. I thought, okay, am I having a stroke? Am I having a brain aneurysm? Like, what is going on? And it was so frightening to me. And so what I'm grateful for is I spent a lot of money keeping my mind sharp. But now I spend nothing. You know, I do the protocol. I take a few vitamins because I'm 70. You know, there's certain things like digestive enzymes you should take. But I can't imagine not being able to process thoughts, to remember, you know, to forget things. And right. That would probably be my number one fear. And I don't fear that anymore because of what this protocol does, and because of learning about insulin resistance. And, you know, George, I look at some of the things you cook. You and I are the chefs in the group. We have a lot of fun. But, you know, someone will say to me, oh my gosh, can you eat that? And I'm like, yeah, I eat it last, or I take the fiber matrix before it. Like, I'm smart about how I choose to live gloriously. Yeah. You know, everyone laughs. I'm not giving up all the carbs.
Yeah. And Jennifer, as a caregiver, what's your eating schedule like? How do you manage? Because you have mom, dad, and yourself. Mm-hmm. How do you manage your feeding schedule? And Sam, I want to ask you how you and your bride do too in a minute. But what's your world look like, Jennifer?
Well, for me, I wake up and start drinking the tea. It is a no-brainer for me. It takes the place of my pot of coffee.
No-brainer on an Alzheimer's.
Yes, I did. Yes,
it's a no-brainer.
Yes. Sorry about that, guys.
You're
pun intended. Anyways, mom and dad are responsible for their breakfast. Mom has decided that she does not want to drink the tea.
All right. She came off of it. She was on it for like a month, wasn't she? Or 2 months?
She was on it for 2 months and then stopped. And then
Do you think she might do the chocolate mint brownie as a hot chocolate in the morning?
I had Dad try that last night. He
I
drank
haven't
a
gotten
half a
my
cup.
box.
He drank a half a cup. Dad's thoughts on me drinking the tea, Kaz, is you need to stop that tea because you have entirely too much energy.
I've had
Okay,
that
that's
all
not
my
gonna
life.
happen.
I've had people say to me, seriously, you
Yeah.
need to slow down. I'm like,
They're like,
well,
can you sit? And I'm like, why? I got things to do. Got more things to do around
Yeah,
here.
I'm like that too normally.
So, and then, but mom is drinking the fiber. Mom's got a lot of IBS, colitis, diverticulitis. So she takes one full fiber during her 3 meals, which is, in my opinion, helping. In her opinion, and maybe.
Right.
So for me, they eat in a different eating window than I do.
Right.
So when I eat lunch, obviously I eat in order. And sometimes I just go and get myself some fast food. As long as I drink my fiber, I'm just like, today's the day. We're doing it. Let's go. And then dinner, I do the dinner. So tonight it was chicken, corn, potatoes. Mom had carrots. And I always say, don't forget to eat it in order. And my dad will look at me and he's like, I'm going to eat what I want. Okay. You do you.
Yeah. And how did just real quick, I want to catch up because we haven't chatted for a while with you were gone. You were able to take a week off, and I'm so happy that you got that respite, darling. I mean,
Yes.
that was critical. And you got to be Grandma Jay, right? I mean, you were like,
Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay. Now George has been telling me about respite for the entire time I've been on this protocol. And it went in one ear and out the other. And then I went to go see my daughter in Virginia for 10 days. My parents did not want anybody with them. I can't force adults to do things that I think would be beneficial if they don't want to do it. So I told my brother where I was going. I did call and check in. Apparently my brother was here a couple times. Everybody was still standing. Everything was fine. Medications were taken. Everything was written down. So I was pleased, but I still had the apprehension while I was gone. My son-in-law told my daughter, when Gigi gets here, because I took time off of my remote job, she is not to work because I always show up when I'm working. She is not to do anything except play, eat, and sleep. I slept for 7.5 to 8 hours every day.
no, you didn't.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
I did. And I was averaging about 5 to maybe 6.5 for 3 years. So this was like a big deal. Like I didn't know what to do. My animals went with me. They didn't know what to do. Anytime like my daughter was doing laundry, she's like, can I have your clothes? And next thing I know, my clothes were folded. It was like I was at a hotel. All of my meals were made. I played with my grandson. I think I vacuumed their basement once, and she's like, you need to stop that. That is not why you're here. And I'm like, I'm a mom. This is my job. This is what I do. And she's like, not here. Okay. So literally I was taken care of for 10 days.
Glorious. I love it.
It was amazing. And then I came home and I went, when do I go next?
Oh, I'm so excited that now we really understand what respite will be and means, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's
Good stuff.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Sam, how do you eat now? How are you and your wife? What's your world like now on the protocol? How do you eat? What's your mornings like? I guess probably more important.
Yeah, mornings, not especially in the winter. Now that it's been cold, Carlene really likes starting her morning with a hot cup of the apple spice, and I like the hot lemon. We'll drink it like we drink a cup of coffee, and start a day with just sipping on that hot warm drink. And we eat at about 11 to 12. Sometimes 1 or 2, but typically 11 or 12 is a day. But we'll real regimented in what we eat in the order that we eat. And I still enjoy food, and I still really enjoy, healthy fats. I really enjoy really paying attention to fiber. And I do a fiber packet before each meal. I don't just do one a day. I do two a day, one for each meal.
Sure.
And I, we have a high protein, and we're watching our grass fed and, ocean caught salmon, and we're trying to make the best choices or the best quality of the meats that we are eating. Carlene still tends to lean toward the vegetarian, so a lot of the high protein she can get in the veggie world. But we'll eat a good lunch, and then I'll be sipping on this all afternoon again, and then we'll eat dinner around 4 or 5. Couple of meals. The snacks have completely been cut out. I don't snack. I don't reach for this stuff anymore. So food wise, we feel like we've really gotten on top of it, and I feel for the first time in my life, and again, this is I'm a year in now, but I feel like the food that I'm eating is giving me fuel. Instead of the food I was eating, I'd feel exhausted and tired after I'd be done eating.
Sure.
I mean, I feel like the foods that I'm eating are giving my body fuel, and I don't want to nap or crash or any of those things. So I feel so much better that way. But I want to just mention one thing real quick regarding to symptoms, because now that we're trying to educate, and part of what we're doing on this live obviously is educating people that are watching. And there's 2 parts to this education, and why I love these lives is I love this community. I love being able to hear your stories. I love being able to hear that Jennifer, there's somebody that was just like I was. I mean, I can relate with her so much in her story. It sounds like my story, and that we're not alone, and that there is a community of people around us that are amazing people. But when I was 50 years old, when I was 50 and pastoring in Columbia, Missouri, I had to have my cataracts done at 50. Okay. I was in the emergency room probably once a week, if not twice a month for sure, getting shots for my migraine headaches because they were so intense. And I would be out for 2 or 3 days in a dark room. I couldn't have any light because it affected me. It hurt so bad to have light. And I had I was starting to, this extroverted personality type started becoming introverted, started to back away from everything. As people start to lose a little bit of their brain function, a little bit at a time, it changes your personality. It changes. I wanted to kind of hide from some of the situations that I was in. Even last Christmas, a year ago Christmas, I was at my daughter's house, and I'm kind of a little bit of the life of the party. I mean, I love having a good time. I love people. I just enjoy people. And I'm at my daughter's house, sitting in a corner during Christmas, and I tell my wife, I'm leaving. I just don't feel comfortable. I'm leaving. My 2 daughters, my grandkids, my posse, I mean, my people, and I wanted to get away. I didn't, maybe I just didn't want them to see me not being able to communicate the way that I used to, or and I can see that now. I couldn't see it at all at the time. Obviously, I was in the fog and in the storm. But man, as I look back now, wow! You talk about depression and anxiety that it was causing me. It was amazing. So if you're out there listening and you're hearing some of these same symptoms or some of the same stuff that we're talking about, we do these because we want to help save you. We want to help save you from going through all the challenges that we faced, and we have found something that is so effective.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that the more we talk, the more things come up that I get reminded of myself, that this one over here would remind me of, and like, hey, you are like this or that, the other. And so one of the things I wanted to say when we were talking about eating, as we're kind of wrapping up on here though, is Dr. Kaz, you help support my ability to be okay when on the day I constantly get from this one. So what did you eat today? And I'll go, nothing. Well, that's not, like, wait a minute. See, I get to eat irregularly. That's Dr. Kaz says it's a healthy thing to keep our system in.
Yeah, but not to eat cashews.
Gesundheit.
So what have you eaten today? Oh, I had some cashews, and they're not even nuts. They're not nuts.
I knew that was coming. I knew she would nail you on the cashews are not nuts.
Yes.
But this is what I love about the protocol is that when I started, and I had been a relatively clean eater, but I was a sugar addict. I definitely was a sugarholic. I could give up sugar for a year, take a piece of candy, take a bite of it, and that was it. I was going under. Yeah. And if you had told me 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, you are going to walk by a bowl of the best caramels, dark chocolate caramels, and think, And that's the beauty when you get your gut good. Everything changes. Not just the way you feel, not just your energy, not the way you think, but your taste buds.
Yep.
I used to love a nice glass of red wine. Bummer, I don't like red wine anymore. And I'm like, well, that's a bummer. Once in a while, an occasional margarita doesn't do it for me. And I find that, yes, once in a while I'll be like, oh, I think I want a dessert. So I'll make a sugar-free apple crisp, or I'll take cottage cheese and whip it up in the blender with a little cacao powder and a little erythritol and a little vanilla and maybe 2 tablespoons of coconut cream, and I'll make this chocolate mousse. And to make me feel more special, I'll put it in a piping bag and I'll pipe it out into a really cool dish. And then I eat chocolate mousse. And the beauty is when you get your gut good, you do have those moments where you're like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and go a little cray-cray and have the eggs Benedict with a gluten-free egg muffin because I can't do gluten. But it gives you freedom. And I think for me, I'm a power and control personality. I value power, control, and freedom. And that's, having this variable diet gives me a little bit of freedom, but I don't ever really have to say no to anything. I say a lot more, I just don't want that right now. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a power of control because people suffer from hangry. And in America, I think, guys, would you agree with this? In America, we have this all or nothing attitude. And so I'm going to give this and I'm not going to do it no more. And eventually it's like, just a little bit. And then you go right back and then you have shame. And then
the guilt,
anxiety, depression,
all of that feeds into stress. And as you guys know, stress goes up, sleep goes down. When sleep goes down, your immune system goes down. When your immune system goes down, your gut bacteria, all the little goobies in your gut go down. And the best education, and I think Sam said it well, how the heck can I go through 40 years of being with holistic healthcare and never hear the term insulin resistance?
Right.
How can I have a gallbladder removed and a doctor, a surgeon, a really good surgeon who never heard of the term insulin resistance? And I agree. I think, forget about the junk we're teaching kids. I was a high school teacher 45 plus years ago. Kids need to learn how to stay healthy, how to eat better. Like if you ask a kid, what's the food pyramid? They'd be like, is that a new, junk food? And it's like, oh my God. We've gotten so far away of connection to our food. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it until I thought about it. our food probably traveled 200 steps from the garden to our table. Like it didn't travel from Argentina or China or Thailand. And I had a mom who used to say, "Oh, mouse bait, we always eat what's in season." And I'd be like, "Okay, you eat raspberries when raspberries come out. You eat blueberries when blueberries come out.
Yeah.
You know, can applesauce when you have hundreds of bushels." But I feel like we're doing the younger generation a disservice. I like to talk to seniors because I feel like now the only thing they want to do is open a pill bottle and a bag, a pill bottle and a box of cookies, a pill bottle and a can. And, you know, we say it again and again. I don't know anybody that's taking any medicine ever that has been cured of anything. You know, we talk about chemo curing cancer, but at the end of the day, the damage it does to most people's bodies. And I'm like, why are we constantly coming up with new diseases, new medicines, and not going back to the basics and not just teaching good eating habits and teaching, you know, the hardest thing for me is to teach my athletes how to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So that guys, we should wrap up here, I guess. And she's wearing her purple Alzheimer's sweater. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
And one thing I want to thank Dr. Cass for coming on. It's great to have you on. I hope you'll be back as a guest again. And Sam, always great having you. The first time we met and I got your story, I brought me to tears. And it's real because someday I'll go back to my story on brain fog, and the more we go through it, the more things like the isolation and the changing and all of that kind of stuff, that the precursor to the cliff load of my blood that I literally shouldn't be here. And then Jennifer, my gosh, goodness gracious, I haven't seen you for seems like 500 years live on this channel. And I'm so glad that you really got that respite. And we'll talk more about that caregiving. And, you know, we have, with my mom, who's 96, you know, blessed to have her. She lives in her own home. We have a niece that are boots on the ground 24/7. We have respite care for her. And we have hospice that comes in. And then one of my 10 brothers and sisters, there's 10 of us, is in every month as well. So we have a great community, important, just like we have this community, of a great community supporting mom at 96, and she still knows our names and that kind of stuff and has a wit about her and things. Of course, she goes to the other side too, but, you know, that's a reality. And we talk about caregiving. We talk about it's not free. And it doesn't just impact a single person that has the conditions. And we talk about, we're going to have more evidence-based things on how it's preventable. That's why we talk. That's why we do this. I mean, Gavin's on here, and Gavin's 22, 24.
Yeah.
And he could tell us about it. And he things that have trained him. And Mike was worked in an ambulance for decades. And he could talk to us about things. And Carlene and David's on. My gosh, David's story is incredible. So maybe we'll get David on that. Nikki, my gosh, Nikki was on as well here. Just a couple of people that responded, said hi to everybody, and they're thanking you for being on. I will get you guys a copy of tonight's show. It's a great show. And we're just getting better. And thank you. I'm glad you're all well. I'm glad you're all safe with this weather that's going on. Jennifer, forget you. You're in Miami. Who cares? But if you were still back up in Maryland, I'd be concerned. But you're telling us, like, I don't know, maybe it's cold. It's like 60 degrees or something, right?
No, but it's coming, and it's going to be 39 or 29 or something under this. Temperature is 65, and that's just not okay.
Yeah, well, we had that was about negative. Yeah. So
I love you guys. I want you to stay warm.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye. Take care.